In our game, you have to be able to recover from the knocks. If you can't recover from it, first time it happens, that's the end. You have to expect it, deal with it, and you have to move forwards.
What can't go wrong? You can be the most well-prepared boat. Gear can always fail. Sails can rip. You can hit things in the water. Things can always go wrong.
When things go wrong during a race, you step into crisis mode. The first thing that you do is to make sure that he's okay, that the skipper's okay, and then you assess the damage. You see how serious it is, whether this is we're out the race, or whether it's a competitive disadvantage.
We've had many crises, and each crisis can develop in a different way, but we have a plan and we have a team based to support any crisis that happens within AT Racing. We followed that process.
When that phone rings, you can feel physically sick, and it's pretty stressful. But then it's a case of managing it. You know, there's been numerous times since I've been with the team where that's happened. It's a state of shock, but you have to manage the situation and get through it and try and make the most of it.
We do everything we can to mitigate any risks. So we run a risk register based on our boat and every component of our boat, and we work really hard to do whatever we can to ensure that our boat is prepared the best it can be. But there's just so many other different variables that we cannot control. And we've been there before, whether it's going to race starts and being hit by a fishing boat, or whether it's a keel, you're hitting an object in the water and your keel's falling off. We can't control those things, they're out of our control. So we do the best thing we can to mitigate it, but it's part of the sport we're in. Like I said, it can be quite brutal.
Nothing goes to plan in this sport, you can be sure of that. And the example of the collision during the TJV, obviously it gives an opportunity for the team to kind of come together. And actually the team remains really calm, there's very little panic. The communications with the skipper, with Alex and Neil on board, is always very clear. And when something that we don't plan for happens, we actually have a very clear plan of how to deal with that. And therefore, you know, responding to those situations becomes much easier because we've put the work in beforehand to set out a procedure of how the team would respond.
You know, Alex is very good. Like within a couple of minutes of any incident, he phones me straight away. My phone is always on. Our crisis team is based around Portsmouth. Within an hour, we were all together. And then we assess and follow our plan avidly to the mark. Yeah, we don't deviate from that, and it works. So it's something that we've tried and tested.
In terms of having an event offshore, you know, we're very reliant on the management team and you know, and Ross as one of our directors. And Ross is very calm. His mind's calculating all the time, and that's always good. You know, Ross provides a good calming effect to the team.
First thing I do is you run through with Alex to make sure that everything is safe, you know, and he can continue to some degree. And if he needs any information to stabilize things right at that moment, so that he can keep sailing, and you do that, and you give yourself basically a window of how much time and what decision do we need to make.
The critical thing is firstly making sure the boat and the skippers are stable. Once you've got that, time is actually your friend. You actually need to take as much time as you possibly can do to make sure you're making the right decisions. If you rush into any decisions in an instant like that when you're dealing with a crisis, you're more likely to make a wrong one or to make a poor one.
We do have contingency plans in place, but at the same time, situations do change very quickly, and you got to adapt and go from your plan A to a plan B, or be ready for that.
We look at all of our checklists, we decide what the next steps need to be. And although we need to be rational and we need to think about every one of those steps, we also need to move very quickly. This sport doesn't stop for anyone. Before you know it, fans around the world will be very aware that something has gone wrong in the race, that Alex could be in trouble. And so we really need to be on the front foot.
If something unfortunately does go wrong, and it can do in a sport like this, then you really feel it. You know, we all ideally don't want to take our work home, but this is the kind of work that you do take home, and you feel it very, very personally. You know, not only is he a great guy, but we've also all invested a lot in this, so we all feel it.
You really have to separate the emotional side and the rational side. You can feel very stressed and nervous for him. You have to park your personal feelings and your emotions and what's going through your mind, and you have to regroup as a team. With these races, you have spent a great deal of money, so many hours, and so you have to continue. You know, you can't really quit. There is no quit in Alex, and there's no quit in us as a team.